Hello everyone, my name is Kyle and this will be the fifth video installment in my YouTube lecture series. I don't have an actual title for it at the moment, but the name of the playlist that I've made is just called Religion, so you can check this out. Today's title is called Sit Down, Shut Up, and Let It Happen. Now, the title that I got was from Terence McKenna, who was a philosopher slash world religion expert, popularized in the 1960s through the 1990s. And this comes from a lecture that he was having where talking about the use of entheogens and shamanistic or meditative practices. And he said that the best way to use them is to sit down, shut up, and let it happen. So, the reason that you need to sit down, shut up, and let everything happen is because this voice inside of your head is not you. And fundamentally, it's not you because you're calling it the voice in your head, which means that you have already attached some possessiveness. The same way that you would say that your computer is not you because it's your computer, or this hand is not you because it is your hand, and your body is your body. You don't just call it myself. So that's fundamentally why you need to let things go, because if you want to try to find yourself, you need to let go of who you are, because this concept of being is very subjective and based off of what you say in this language trap. So, yes, I am saying to let things be, but as we had talked about in the first video in this series, in life you are the camera, the director, the prop, the audience, and the actor. So you kind of play all of these roles where you get the ability to manifest what you want into the world. And I'm not just saying you can sit here in a Harry Potter sense and go, I want a donut, and then bam, donut appears. That wouldn't work. What you can do is you can create things. So to create in this world, you need to sit down and focus on it, because to manifest things, you need to come up with the picture. But the issue is, once the message is clear, you need to get off the phone, because thoughts are things. Now, 150, no, sorry, a little bit further back, about 300 to 400 years ago, the world was primarily this mercantile system where the biggest mode of exchange was individuals in marketplaces. Now, over time, what's ended up happening is people have collectively put together their buying powers to turn into corporations. I mean, granted, investment played a part. I am simplifying how the economic revolution happened. But people came together into these corporations to try to distribute their products more efficiently and capture a larger market. So industrialization was prime for this by allowing us to have different places, have different advantageous things that they could build in their economy, or ways that they could trade based off of the resources and skills of the region. Now, industrialization is very nice because if there was never, the, I guess, really second industrial revolution, or the third, I should say, we wouldn't be able to have all of this technology that's out here, so I wouldn't be able to disseminate this speech to you. At the same time, though, due to industrialization and the global economy evolving the way it is, that's why we have pocketed regions with mass amounts of hunger inside of them, is because we've set up the process to instead just say, hey, we want to give everyone this better chance of life, and instead kind of focused a bit more on the profit aspect, which, a business does need to do to require the investors to stay involved. But the problem is this became our focus, and we lost track of the fact that we're actually trying to improve the world together. So we need to be mindful when we're trying to manifest something. And that's why if you prepare for war, that's the greatest mistake in life. And the truest poverty in this planet is having an enemy. Because you have then said inside of yourself that, as we had talked about in the second video, inside of your head there is this emotional bedrock that exists. So at any point you have the ability to be happy or sad or scared or overjoyed. And it's how you go about practicing your life to then water the seeds, as we'd call it, or the ability to feel some way, that can push you in the wrong direction. So yes, although, if there is truly a catastrophe and you don't have the rations that you need to survive, you're out of luck, which, if you had spent time beforehand preparing for it, you could. But think about how many times you've prepared for something that's never come to fruition that you were afraid about, or, people that primarily plan for great tragedies still don't actually have all that they need because they've never lived through the tragedy. They're just doing it on this, best guess. So, you know, if you avoid focusing on the negative aspect, you save yourself weeks, months, days, or years of mental torment and are able to focus more so on something happier when, in the end, you could have a very similar outcome. Now, that being said, I'm not saying take a passive look on the world. If you have the foresight to say, hey, this is going to happen, be mindful and try to bring this positive aspect into fruition, but don't, systematically sit here and listen to angry propaganda. That's going to very much work against you. So, the process of sit down, shut up, and let it happen is most easily done through meditation, which, if this is your first time ever trying meditation, give it some time. Your brain is like one of those electronic, monkey toys that have the symbols that crash together. Your brain moves a mile a minute. It's very hard to try to quiet at first. So, the way to meditate, you don't necessarily have to just sit for hours on end or try to contort your body into weird positions the way that, Western yoga tries to teach us we need to do. Because the matter of fact is, first of all, yoga is actually supposed to be the combination of everything. It's much more mental than it is physical, in a sense. So the easiest way to start yoga, or really to start meditation since they are kind of one and the same, is to start with your breathing. So if you're trying to meditate and you're realizing, hey, I have all of these thoughts that are clouding my head, your brain's probably going to go on to different topics, come up with different thoughts about 50 times in 2 minutes. So every time you realize that you're having a thought inside of your head, just change your focus back to breathe in, breathe out. And after a while, you'll be able to start to control when your mind wanders. And we're not trying to completely cut off the ability to have these thoughts while you meditate, because the goal is not silence for the sake of banishing everything else. It's to move yourself into the mindset of being an observer of life, as opposed to someone trying to take things that are there and manipulate them constantly. Because if you're able to sit back, relax, and let things happen, you're then going to be able to be much more mindful of what's going on, because you'll see how the pieces relate to each other, as opposed to just saying, I want this, I'm doing this to get it in a very systematic, push a button, something comes out, like a Pavlovian type of training, as opposed to really looking at it and saying, hey, everything is interrelated and different things can produce different outcomes. So the best way to really find what you want is to let it find you. So this won't actually guarantee you truly get everything you actually want, but if it's the things you're trying to find, what you need to do is don't look at it in this positive negative aspect, because as we had talked about in the fourth video, if you believe that there is this massive reincarnation and it's gone through the life of every person and every being and everything, then the middle path, which we had talked about as well, which is an appropriate way to live, which is to avoid extremes. So trying not to get too much into something, trying not to just be completely austere with your life, and really kind of focus on an in-between is one of the easiest ways to go. Because, in this sense, you're saying, hey, you know what, I may not get this one happy day that I'm looking for, but I'm really trying to capture the aspect or the message at the end of my life. That's much more important than the message of the day. So, when you're trying to do something and you're trying to let it find you, there's 3 stages of attempting to do something. The first stage is you're going to try to do something. You're going to do it with your might or pretty heavily, or just be interested in it because you want this reaction. But after a while, you're going to realize, hey, I'm not getting what I want as quickly as I wanted, or it's not as long lasting. So you're going to stop trying because you're just not getting the effect you want. And you're going to, half-ass doing something, maybe even quarter-ass it, to the point where you're not actively trying to improve the system anymore, you're just going against it. And at some point, you're going to stop and say, wait a second, I'm hurting myself. So I'm just going to let things happen, because this is the point when you actually find what you're looking for. It's when you're not trying, it's when you've already tried trying and you've already tried not trying. And then you just surrender to the way, which is one of the big messages of the Tao Te Ching, which is there is this movement of this world that exists in everyone. But you can't be a part of this movement if you're pushing against it. So don't scrutinize the system. Sit down, shut up, and let it happen. Thank you for watching.